What's up everybody? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure review, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Marvel Legends Retro Wave Spider-Man. And before we get into the review, I'm just going to get this out of the way right off top. This figure's not out yet. I bought him on Mercari, which means that I overpaid for him. I pretty much paid about double retail for the entire set. I think it cost me like $250 shipped, so that's about double retail. And usually I'm like very against overpaying for Marvel Legends figures, and I don't encourage anybody to do that because it kind of takes away half of the appeal. A big reason why I love Marvel Legends so much is because they're really good figures and they're good representations of characters that I love so much, but they're also very affordable. So if you're out there overpaying for them, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? And it takes away half of the thing that makes them great. But for me, in this case, I couldn't wait. I couldn't resist. And the big reason why is because I wanted to see if this is going to be the best 6-inch Spider-Man, and I wanted to see how he would compare to other 6-inch Spider-Man figures out there. So I do plan on doing a comparison video with him and a bunch of other 6-inch Spider-Man figures, but for now this is just going to be the review of this guy. But yeah, don't overpay for Marvel Legends figures. Be strong. You know, if you go out and pay double for this, you'll probably regret it in a month when he pops up in stores, you know. So just be strong and, you know, buy them at a reasonable cost. But let's go ahead and get into it. So first off, he comes in this awesome looking packaging, which is based on the figure line from the 90s, which was kind of inspired by the animated series. The figures that are in this wave aren't necessarily based on the animated series, but it does feel like they take some inspiration from those looks, you know, on some of the figures. With Spider-Man, we have a pretty classic looking Spider-Man. He looks awesome in the packaging. I just love this. And yes, I'm going to be buying doubles of these figures so I can hang these on my wall. I love the way the figure looks here. You can see his accessories. I love the artwork here on the side. I especially like the way that it says Spider-Man up here. I think that's really, really dope. And then you have the Marvel Comics logo right here, the old school 90s style. We have Spider-Man sitting on the Spider-Man text. Really, really cool stuff. On the back, we get a look at all the other figures that came out in this wave. And then up here, we have a very short description of Peter Parker. It pretty much says he was bit by a spider, then he has powers. And right here, it shows us how we could interchange the head. And that's about it. This packaging is awesome. I really love the retro packaging. It is so cool. It's very compact and looks good. And it looks awesome hanging on your wall. But you know, while we're here, we're going to open this figure up and check it out. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so here we have Spider-Man right out of the box, and yes, everything that you've heard about this figure is absolutely true. This thing is amazing. I would say with the exception of Beast and Snake Eyes, this Spider-Man is probably the closest that Hasbro has gotten to import quality. This thing is really, really nice. He does have a couple of flaws, nothing major, but a few things that I kind of dislike about it. So he's not perfect, but he's near perfect for sure. But let's go ahead and talk about those flaws before we get into the rest of it, because pretty much this whole video is just going to be talking about how awesome this Spider-Man is. But let me go ahead and make sure you know that there are some problems with it. First off, I really don't like the red colored pegs. I think that's just like a poor, lazy choice. They kind of went all out with everything else, like the articulation, and like a lot of the paint detail is really nice. The lines are very crisp, but you know, those red pegs kind of throw it off, you know. But that's one like design flaw I don't like. And then I do have a couple of QC issues. There is a little bit of paint rub in the shoulders, but not a crazy amount. I'll probably end up touching that up and just leaving it. But to be honest, I thought it would be a little bit more. And then I do have another QC issue on the back of my figure. Like the inside of the shoulder joint here is not painted. So the web lines aren't on there, but they are on this side. So, you know, that kind of sucks, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. It's hidden. I'm never going to see it. I'll probably go ahead and try to draw the lines on there. But aside from that, yeah, this thing is crazy. This is a really nice figure, and I think it's a huge step forward for Hasbro. I really hope that they start using like what they did here on other figures, especially other Spider-Man figures. I could definitely see them re-releasing almost every version of Spider-Man on this body, and I'd be all for it. But yeah, let's go ahead and get in close and take a look at some of the details on this guy. There's not a whole lot of sculpting work, but the paint work is nice, and I want to show that off a little bit. So starting off at the head, I do think this is a pretty nice looking Spider-Man head sculpt. Personally, I like it a little bit better when Spider-Man has like the big white eyes, but I still think this looks really cool and it gives off a very classic feel. So I'm very happy with it, and I think they did a good job. But check it out. Look at all the web lines here. They're all very clean. It all looks very nice. And one thing I really like about this head is the fact that they sculpted the eyes on there. They're not just painted onto the flat head. So that is really, really dope. But yeah, check out the web lines. They all look really nice. And then same thing throughout the figure. You know, check out the web lines on the body. They all look really, really good. We have the spider logo in the center of the chest. It's kind of hard to see because of the glare and just the way that it's kind of sunken in between the muscles there. But it does look good. The spider logo on the back is not as clean as I wish it was, but you know, it's not a huge deal. I just have a little bit of a mark right there. And then as I mentioned before, I'm missing web lines right there. But aside from that, oh, I have one more imperfection actually. Right here on the arm, you can see there's a little scratch or something. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of paint imperfections. And that's very impressive because, I mean, Spider-Man has a pretty intricate design with all those webs. I'm sure it's like a pain to try to get that right, but I think they did a pretty good job with it. And I just love the way that all the web lines kind of hide the articulation. That is so dope. And moving down into the body, you know, just pretty much standard Spider-Man stuff. But I would say what separates him from some other Marvel Legends Spider-Man figures is the fact that the web lines are so well done on him. Like a lot of other Spider-Man figures, the webs aren't as clean. Like Pizza Spider-Man had a lot of problems, and various other ones, but this one, man, they did a good job with it. So I'm happy with the way the figure looks. And now for accessories, Spider-Man really didn't come with all that much. And I think that that's really the weak point of this figure. If he would have came with a bunch of other hands and all kinds of cool stuff, an unmasked head, this guy would be untouchable. But as it is, he's kind of lacking in accessories. But he does have a couple of things. First off, he does come with two different heads. The first one here is the one that we've already seen. It's the one that was on the body in the box. But then he also comes with another head that has like smaller white eyes. And this looks pretty cool too. It kind of gives like an old school feel. And then he also comes with two different sets of hands. First off, we have the thwip hands, and then we also have a set of fists. But I really wish that he came with a set of open hands or wall crawling hands. I think that would have been perfect. Unfortunately, you're not able to use Pizza Spider-Man hands on this figure, but you do have some options. You are able to use the hands from the Ultimate Spider-Man figure from the Venom, the Space Knight wave. I think that's what it was. But they do work. They are a little small though, as you could see. And I didn't think of this. Jay Hernandez did this in his video first, so shout out to Jay. But that definitely works if you need some open Spider-Man hands. But like I said, they are a little small. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of different head swaps, because even though he only comes with two different heads himself, you are able to pop on heads from other Spider-Man figures. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's start off by removing this head. Bam, there we go. And over here, I have a couple different Spider-Man heads. Right here, I think this one is the... I want to say it's the House of M Spider-Man head. There we go. Ooh, that looks good. That's the House of M Spider-Man. I think the colors match up pretty well. And this head sculpt is very similar. I think it is the exact same head sculpt as the Pizza Spider-Man one, but the colors right here match up perfectly. So that is awesome. That's good. And then we have the head from the Scarlet Spider. And again, it's the same sculpt, so it pops right on. And the colors match okay right there too, so that's cool. And then here we have the Retro Spider-Man, which again, same sculpt, but colors are slightly different, so it doesn't match as well as the previous two. And then right here we have the Raft Spider-Man head, which kind of has more of a McFarlane feel to it with the bigger eyes and stuff. But yeah, that looks dope too. That'll work. One of these days, they have to release this Spider-Man in like an ultimate version, you know, with all kinds of different heads, different size eyes, with different like inspiration from, you know, different artists. I think that would be really, really cool. And then a couple of unmasked heads. And then over here, we have the half unmasked head from the Vintage Wave Spider-Man, I think it was. There we go. That was kind of a tight squeeze, but that works. I think the colors are a little bit off, but I think for the most part, it's okay. I'm not sure where my half unmasked Pizza Spider-Man head is. I think it's around here somewhere. And then here's a look at... Ugh, that one was kind of tough to get on there. But this is the bearded Spider-Man, or the bearded unmasked Peter Parker. And that was a really tight squeeze, and now I'm kind of scared to pop this off. Shoot, hopefully. I'm going to have to be careful when I take that off. So it does fit, but it's a really, really tight squeeze. Let's see, hopefully I don't snap this. There we go. That would have been whack, huh? And then last but not least, we have the Multiple Man head, because I don't have the unmasked Peter Parker head that came in that 2-pack with Mary Jane. But this is similar, and I think it works for Peter Parker. So it does kind of sit up a little bit higher than I would like, but I think for the most part, it works, you know. So that's an option for unmasked Peter Parker head if you don't have that 2-pack. So yeah, you know, you could do a lot of good stuff here, but I do like the head that it came with. So, you know, I'm fine with it. But I like that we could pop on all those different Spider-Man heads just in case people don't like the ones that he came with. Alright, so now it's time for a bunch of size comparisons. And brace yourselves because there's a bunch of figures that I wanted to show this guy next to. And fair warning, I'm going to say the name Spider-Man about 100 times in the next minute or so. So let's get this started with the new retro Spidey alongside the Mafex comic book Spider-Man. And then a random Toy Biz Spider-Man. I'm not even sure exactly what figure that is. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. Next up, we have him alongside the previous retro Spider-Man. And then the Marvel Legends Raft Spider-Man, and both of these figures are just repaints of the Pizza Spider-Man body. Next up, we have him alongside the PS4 Spider-Man. I always thought that was a pretty good buck for Spider-Man, and I was really hoping that we'd see a classic version of Spider-Man on it, but now I don't care about that because we have this new buck that kind of makes that one obsolete when we're thinking about Spider-Man. And then on the opposite side of that, we have the Captain Universe Spider-Man. And then here we have him alongside the Superior Octopus. And this is another body that I feel is kind of obsolete now because of this new body. And then on the opposite side, we have him alongside the Superior Spider-Man. Here we have him alongside the Ultimate Spider-Man and then the McFarlane Spider-Man from Toy Biz. And then here we have him alongside the Marvel Select Spectacular Spider-Man and the Marvel Select Far From Home Spider-Man. And then now we have him alongside the Mafex Venom and the Marvel Legends Venom. And I will say that I think that the Mafex Venom is much too small to hang out with this Spider-Man, but he looks pretty good next to the Marvel Legends one, even though I'm not the biggest fan of that figure. Here we have the new retro Spider-Man alongside the Marvel Legends Dr. Octopus and Marvel Legends Scorpion. Here we have him alongside the recently released Deluxe Marvel Legends Venom and the Marvel Select Venom. I think he looks pretty cool next to either one of them, to be honest with you. And then here we have him alongside the Marvel Select Sandman and Marvel Select Rhino. Again, I think he looks badass next to them, especially Rhino. And then here we have him alongside the Marvel Legends Hobgoblin and Marvel Legends Mysterio. Here we have him alongside the Marvel Legends Kingpin and Marvel Select Lizard. And then last but not least, we have him alongside the Marvel Legends Pizza Spider-Man and Marvel Legends Bucky Cat. So I would say that this is probably the most articulated Spider-Man figure that Hasbro has ever given us, but it's not the most articulated Marvel Legends Spider-Man because Toy Biz definitely gave us a couple that had more articulation going on, but those figures ultimately suffered because they tried to force a lot of articulation in there, and then as a result, they didn't always look that good, you know. Some of the limbs kind of looked lanky and weird, and some of the articulation got loose over time, and the figures just kind of, they didn't really look that great because they try to just do too much with the articulation. With this figure, that's not the case. There's all kinds of articulation and it's well hidden into the design of the figure. So it's really, really cool what they have going on. One thing that I absolutely love is, like, you know, we have this new torso setup that we'll look at in a second, but you can almost not even tell that there's joints in there because you know, the diaphragm joint is kind of hidden in the web lines, and then same thing with the ab crunch. So that is really, really cool, and Spider-Man definitely has that advantage. But let's go ahead and get into it. First off, his head does move side to side, and it's kind of funny what we have going on here with the neck joint. Let's pop off this head. So he's got a neck joint very similar to the Marvel Legends Winter Soldier that was recently released, and I'm not the biggest fan of that neck setup. It's definitely limited, but what they did here is they cut out a little channel so that the ball peg could kind of travel in there and you could get his head up, and I think that's awesome. But it definitely feels like it was a last minute kind of thing, you know. Like, I don't know why they would even have this neck setup to begin with Spider-Man, but luckily they made it work by doing this. And this is very similar to what I did on the Marvel Select Gamerverse Spider-Man. I know I'm not the first ever to do that, but you know, it's like the same idea, you know. So it works. I'm happy with it. Let's go ahead and pop his head back on and get back to it. So his head can move up to about right there with that new little neck setup, and I think that works, but it doesn't move forward at all. So you could only move it a little bit at the head itself. That neck joint doesn't allow any forward movement, but luckily you can bring his head forward itself on the ball joint, so that's cool. And then it can go side to side, obviously, and then we have a little bit of tilt to it. So, you know, it's pretty decent movement at the head. And then for the torso, we have this awesome new torso that has all kinds of good stuff going on. First off, we have a diaphragm cut, which I always love. So that's really cool. You can move it around. You could twist. That's where you're going to get your twist from. He does not have a waist swivel, so you're going to get your twist right there at the diaphragm cut. Yeah, I just love diaphragm cuts. I wish all Marvel Legends figures came with diaphragm cuts. And then we have an ab crunch, and using the diaphragm cut and the ab crunch, he can crunch forward a really nice amount. Check that out. Damn, that's good. And luckily they did this thing with the head, because imagine if he could crunch forward this much and then you could only bring his head up that much. People would have been so pissed off. Luckily, they made it right before it came out. But yeah, I really, really love this torso setup. This is so awesome. And then for the arms, we have butterfly jointed shoulders. And then ball jointed shoulders, they go all the way around. They could come out to the side. Like I said, we have some paint rub in there, so you want to be careful. And then he has upper bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, which, I mean, they're pretty decent. But it looks like his bicep kind of gets in the way of them bending any more than that. But at least they get a little bit more than 90, so that's cool. And then at the hand, we have a swivel and a hinge. And then for the legs, we've got some really cool new stuff going on. We have drop down hips. Bam, bam, look at that. This is not completely new for Hasbro. They have given us drop down hips on Beast and on the G.I. Joe classified stuff. So that's good. And it's awesome that they put it on Spider-Man, because how like whack would that have been if they gave, you know, Duke drop down legs, but not Spider-Man. So with these drop down legs, you could bring his leg forward a really nice amount. Look at that. Damn, that's really, really dope. Damn, that's crazy. It's so awesome to have a Marvel Legends Spider-Man that could do stuff like this. And then you could bring him out to the side. Pretty much do the splits. There we go. And then we have upper thigh swivel, double jointed knee, which has a good bend to it. He has lower leg swivel. And then his feet can point forward to about right there. Then you can bring them up to right there. And then we have rocking ankles. So there you go. But yeah, the articulation on this figure is awesome. There are some limitations, but I think for the most part, this thing does everything that you'd want a Spider-Man figure to do. Let's go ahead and get him in a cool little swinging pose real quick. So look at that. I mean, that's perfect, right? Or pretty much perfect. Yeah, you could definitely do a lot of good stuff. One thing that I was kind of concerned with was whether or not I'd be able to get him into a decent crouching pose. Like everybody who got this figure before me, I was sending them messages asking them to show me what he looked like in a crouching pose. And I think for the most part, you could do what you need to do as far as getting him to crouch. So I'm pretty happy with how much he could crouch forward. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do that here. So yeah, he could crouch forward a really nice amount, and you could actually get him to hold this pose right there. So I'm pretty happy with that right there. That works. I mean, I wish I could get him to crunch forward a little bit more, like so we could get a little bit of a deeper crouching pose. And you know what? Ultimately, I might end up like popping this apart and trying to see if I could just add to it a little bit, since I have to kind of touch up that paint in the back anyways. And this is a figure that I do plan on buying multiples of. I mean, I want to have at least 3, you know, one to keep in the package, one to modify, and then one just regular one to have open. I don't usually do that with figures, but with this guy, I feel like I have to, you know. But yeah, I think I might end up trying to improve the articulation just slightly. And honestly, it's not like it needs it, but you know, I'm just kind of greedy with articulation, I guess. But anyways, I love the articulation on this figure. I think they did a great job with it. All right, so I don't think it's any surprise, but I absolutely love this figure. I think Hasbro did an incredible job. Everything that you've heard about this figure is pretty much true. This thing is the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man that we've ever had by far. It just might be the best 6-inch Spider-Man. I don't know, it might be pretty close. It's definitely up there, and I think the fact that that's even a conversation is a big credit to this figure, because there's a lot of competition out there. But yeah, this guy is awesome. I love the new articulation setup. I love pretty much everything about it. I just wish that he came with some more accessories. I think that's the thing that kind of weighs this figure down a little bit, and I really hope to see them release like a deluxe version of Spider-Man and just throw all kinds of different things in there. Hands, web effects, extra heads, an unmasked Peter Parker head, all kinds of cool stuff. And if they did did that and charged like 40 bucks or whatever, then it would be untouchable. It would be like the perfect Spider-Man for almost everybody. But I really, really like this figure. I think they did a great job with it. And I'm just really happy to have such a good Spider-Man from Marvel Legends. It's really cool to see that Hasbro has taken these crazy leaps forward in terms of articulation and just overall quality. And they're really competing with the import stuff. And that's saying a lot for a line that costs like $20 to $30 sometimes, you know. But yeah, it's really amazing stuff. And one thing I want to say before I get out of here is don't do anything crazy and go out and overpay for this figure. Just wait a couple months and it'll be everywhere, but just grab it when you can. I guarantee that you won't be disappointed. There are a couple of imperfections, I would say, a couple of QC issues with the paint, and as far as an actual like flaw with the figure, I think that they should have probably went with the pinless technology that they're going to be doing going forward with a lot of figures. I'm sure we'll see a re-release of Spider-Man with that technology implemented, but I think they should have done it this time. I think that's pretty much the only flaw with the figure, and then, you know, the paint imperfections. But aside from that, it's a damn near perfect Spider-Man figure, and I just really, really love it. So anyways, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Make sure to tune in every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific time for my live streams. I'm trying to do all kinds of cool things there, and I'm having a lot of fun, so be sure to check that out. And that's it. Thank you very much. Peace.